Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Bhakti Fundamentals. Today, we're answering a thoughtful question from someone in our community. Will I see my pet in the spiritual world? This is something many people wonder about. After all, pets are often considered beloved members of people's families. So it's natural in a sense to wonder, what happens to them after this life? Will we be reunited? But this question also brings up something deeper. Is my pet eternally my pet? Or is that just the role they're playing right now, given the body that they inhabit? Thus, at its core, today's question is really one about Jiva Tattva, the nature of the soul. Once we understand what a soul actually is, it changes how we view those in animal bodies, including those we call our pets. In Bhakti Yoga, we understand that every living being, whether in a dog, a cat, a bird, an elephant, a human, or even an ant body, etc., is ultimately a jiva, an individual, eternal spiritual soul temporarily residing in a particular material body. From the perspective of Jiva Tattva, or the science of the soul, our pets are not just an animal body. There is a soul inside that animal form you see and interact with. In other words, pets or animals are living entities, souls, like we are. Just as we are individual souls residing in human bodies at present, animals also are individual souls residing in various animal bodies. And every soul, regardless of the body that soul inhabits, has the spiritual qualities of being eternal, full of knowledge, and by nature blissful. Sat Chit Ananda. Therefore, the jivas or souls in animal bodies, or any body lower than the human form, are souls like us, the same spiritual essence that we are, but just in animal bodies at present. The souls currently inhabiting animal forms have not always been in animal forms, and importantly, they will not remain in their animal forms eternally. We learn in the Bhagavad Gita that the soul moves through many different types of bodies over many lifetimes, according to the soul's desires and karma. Here's a simple analogy. Think of a person changing outfits. One day they may wear a red sweater, the next day a blue jacket. The clothing changes, but the person underneath remains the same. Krishna actually uses this analogy in the Gita's second chapter when he declares in the 22nd verse, "As a person puts on new garments, giving up old ones, the soul similarly accepts new material bodies, giving up the old and useless ones." Therefore, we can understand that a material body, whether animal or human, is like clothing for the soul. What we recognize as my pet is actually one particular soul temporarily wearing the body of a dog, a cat, a bird, or another species. The material outer form or body is temporary, but the soul inside is eternal. Moreover, when the animal body reaches the end of its allotted time, the soul within leaves that body, just like a person takes off an outfit at the end of the day. That soul then receives another body, one that brings it closer to the human form of life. In this way, souls in animal bodies continue to move progressively upward, step by step, through the evolutionary cycle of consciousness until they ultimately receive a human body. It is only in the human form that the soul has the capacity to consciously inquire about the absolute truth and perfect their existence by reawakening their forgotten relationship with Krishna, the Supreme. A key point here is that the jiva or soul currently residing in an animal body is not ultimately meant to remain in its current material form, just as we will not eternally appear in the material bodies that we inhabit right now. Of course, we will eternally be ourselves, but in the material world, our bodies, families, relationships, and circumstances change according to the particular body we currently inhabit. Again, we will always be ourselves, the same unique individual soul that we've always been. But until we return to our original spiritual position, our external identities will keep shifting, lifetime after lifetime. It's important to remember that we have inhabited countless material bodies during our long sojourn through this material world. As Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 13, as the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. Just as we change clothes every day, the soul changes bodies, lifetime after lifetime, moving through a vast succession of forms. In fact, the Vedic scriptures describe 8,400,000 species of life, and based on the nature of our own desires and actions, karma, the soul is placed in a corresponding body. This is why it's helpful not to adopt a one-and-done view. The idea that we live once, our body dies, and then we go to heaven or hell forever. The Bhagavad Gita reveals that the jivas, or souls, we, continue in the material world as long as we desire to remain here, and as long as we act materially. And something important to note is that while the human form of life is the most advanced material body, it is not a guaranteed stepping stone to the spiritual world. From the human form, someone may evolve upward toward the spiritual world, or downward into lower species again, depending on how he or she lives and the quality of their consciousness at the time of death for the body. The principle is simple. What we cultivate now, we receive later. If we cultivate material desires and attachments and act materially, then we earn material results, more material entanglement, more temporary material bodies. But if we cultivate spiritual life by hearing about Krishna, chanting his names, and engaging in devotional service, or bhakti yoga, then we open the door to the spiritual world, our true home. So the possibilities in the human form of life are bidirectional, elevation or degradation. That's why the human body is considered such a rare and valuable opportunity. It's the gateway through which the soul can choose its ultimate destination. So when we ask, will I see my pet again in the spiritual world, we're really asking a deeper question. What happens to the particular soul that inhabited my pet's body, and what is my connection to that soul beyond this one lifetime? The hope is that after leaving its current animal form, the soul in our pet's body receives a human birth, either in its next life or not too far in the future. That's because it's specifically in the human form of life that a soul has the intelligence and potential to engage in conscious spiritual practice and make meaningful progress towards liberation from material existence. Without transcendental knowledge, we're left to speculate on the meaning of life, our purpose, and what comes after death for our bodies. But Krishna speaks clearly in the Bhagavad Gita. The goal of human life is to become self-realized and God-realized, to understand that we are not these temporary bodies, but eternal souls, part and parcel of Krishna, the Supreme. From that platform of realization, we are meant to act in devotional service, purify our hearts, and ultimately exit the cycle of birth and death, known as samsara. Still, Krishna reveals that even liberation from material life is not the highest goal. Beyond liberation from material existence lies something far greater: cultivating pure love for Krishna through the performance of devotional service. Such spiritual activity leads us to the spiritual world, where everyone is situated in their eternal, loving relationship with Krishna. As we explored in our recent series on the spiritual world, one must be spiritually qualified to enter that eternal realm. We cannot get there based on mere sentiment or wishful thinking. we have to prepare ourselves in the here and now through the conscious cultivation of Bhakti Yoga, or devotional service to Krishna. So, if we are to ever meet the soul who once inhabited our pet's body again in the spiritual world, that soul, just like us, must have made substantial spiritual advancement, enough to qualify for entrance into Krishna's eternal abode. Thus, it's unlikely that the soul in our particular pet's body will reach the spiritual world right away upon leaving that animal form, unless they've somehow made substantial spiritual advancement even while in that animal form. This isn't totally unheard of. When Krishna appeared as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, for instance, he induced animal-bodied jivas, or souls, to chant the Maha Mantra and dance to it. In a similar way, we can actually help the soul in our pet's body to make spiritual advancement. How? Even though they may not understand words or philosophy too well, the souls in animal bodies can hear sound. Sound vibration is very potent, especially spiritual sound vibration. The Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is not an ordinary sound. It is Krishna himself in the form of sound vibration. By chanting the Maha Mantra in the presence of our pet, the soul, the living entity currently residing in our dog's body or cat's body, for example, we are giving that soul the chance to hear Krishna's holy names. And simply by hearing those names, that soul makes real spiritual progress. We can also think of other ways to include our pets in the devotional atmosphere of our home as well. And why do we ultimately want our pets to make spiritual advancement in this way? Not just so that we can see them in the spiritual world, but so that Krishna can engage them in their eternal relationship with him in the spiritual world. Remember, every soul, including those now in animal bodies, or in any type of living body for that matter, has an eternal relationship with Krishna. Just as we will not appear in these exact material bodies when we return to the spiritual world, neither will our pets. In fact, the soul currently residing in our pet's body may very well exist in a human-like form eternally. So keep in mind that even though you may currently see that soul as a pet, a dog, a parakeet, a rabbit, that's not the eternal identity of the soul inside that body. We don't determine that soul's eternal position or worth. Krishna already has. Every soul, including the one inside your pet's body, has intrinsic value as a spark of spiritual consciousness and possesses a unique, eternal relationship with Krishna. In Bhakti Yoga, we learn to see beyond the outer shell of the temporary body and to care for the eternal soul within. We won't see our pets in the same familiar form in the spiritual world because their animal bodies from this brief lifetime are temporary, just like ours are. However, if that individual soul residing within our pet's body becomes spiritually realized and qualified to enter Krishna's eternal abode, then yes, you can see them again. Just keep in mind that they won't appear there looking like your dog or cat. Instead, they'll appear in a form that reflects their eternal relationship with Krishna, a spiritual form that expresses their unique mood of devotional service and their unique personality in the spiritual realm. Thus, if that soul reaches the spiritual world, they will no longer be your pet, because in truth, they never really were your pet. Rather, like you and me, they are eternally a servant of Krishna. That is their real identity, and that is our real identity also. In this material world, souls temporarily take on many roles and material identities: pet, parent, friend, classmate, colleague, doctor, lawyer, American. But none of these roles define who we truly are. In truth, we are the eternal soul and eternally servants of the Supreme. By the time we have reached the spiritual world, our temporary material designations have fallen away, and we have embraced our true spiritual identity, happily situated in our eternal relationship with Krishna. So yes, we may meet our pets again in that eternal realm, but we will not be their owner, and they will not be our pet. Rather, we'll see each other as fellow souls, fellow devotees of the Lord, serving the true owner of everything and everyone, Krishna. So that's all we have for today on this topic of our pets. Please let us know if you have further questions on the topic, and we'll be happy to answer them. In the meantime, thank you for listening today, and we'll see you next time on Bhakti Fundamentals.